Hello, guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is Cultivate with Candace, and I am Candace. And this is a place where we come and grow together and find ways that we can practically live a life that is pleasing to God. So today, we're going to be kind of back on normal schedule. I'm going to be walking through a passage of scripture very similar to other past videos. And today, we're going to be covering the story of Moses in the burning bush and explore what it can teach us. And we're going to look at it like a little bit after the normal portion of it where the Lord first appears and tells Moses that this is holy ground. We're going to be actually looking at Exodus chapter 4 verses 1 through 17, which happens directly after that. And we can explore kind of what can happen after you have a great encounter with God. What's the aftermath of that look like? You have that really high high spirited moment in church maybe, and then that moment ends. What comes after that? Do the people just automatically know what to do and feel empowered? And we'll just walk through that. And our topic today is going to be you're not on your own. So we're going to just explore what Moses' reaction was to what God was telling him to do, and seeing what his reaction was and how we can respond and apply that in our own lives. Okay, so similar to other times, I'm gonna just begin to read a passage, and it's gonna be up on the screen for you guys, and we'll just talk about it, and I'll just share with you what I've gotten out of it and what I think applies to us today. So this passage picks up right after, like I said earlier, it picks up right after the encounter with the burning bush. And if you're not familiar with the story of Moses, I highly recommend that you go back and read Exodus 1 through 3, because that's going to give you a lot of context that you will need to understand what I'm going to be talking about in this video. So if you're not familiar with that, I encourage you to go and read that. Also, Prince of Egypt is a great movie, and it's something, I'm not saying that it's completely biblically accurate, but it's a good one to get a quick overview of the story of Moses. So I also recommend that as a fun thing to do. Okay, so we're going to start out with verses 1 and 2. So again, we are in Exodus chapter 4, and I'm going to just start with verses 1 and 2. And today I'm reading out of the ESV version. Okay. Then Moses answered, "But behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say the Lord did not appear to you." The Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A staff." So this is picking up, like I said, right after the Lord has appeared to Moses, shown him that he can consume a bush with fire, and well, not consume it, but you can light a bush on fire and it's not consumed. Just showing all this miraculous things, like speaking to him through an inanimate object. And now Moses is still, like I said before, we have these high mountaintop moments at church or in whatever you're at, maybe you're on a mission trip or something. These big moments. What's happening after that? So we see after that big mountaintop moment for Moses, he still is having some doubts. So he comes to God and he's saying, um, he's asking questions, and he's just saying, how am I gonna do this? Are they even gonna believe me? And there's answers to all the questions and doubts that we have for God, but we have to be first willing to bring that to him, as Moses is in this moment. And when God answers us, we have to be willing to hear his answer and really go with that answer or believe it for ourselves, because there's always going to be excuse after excuse that we can bring before the Lord, as we'll see as we continue reading. So he asked the Lord, let's see, they won't, or he tells the Lord, they're not going to believe me or listen to me. And the Lord just like completely disregards that. He's like, anyway, what's in your hand? So to me, that really showed that a lot of times we're saying things to God, saying our doubts to God, and he's showing us that everything that we need, it's already there with us. He's already provided He's already provided Moses with this staff, with everything that he needs to lead and guide these people. And there's always going to be reasons for us not to be obedient to God, but we have to look around for the reasons to follow him and to look around to see what has God given me for this task, or who is this God that I serve? Has he not provided for me this whole long way? So, and it also, the things that Moses was worrying about had not even happened yet, which is really like the definition of worry. Like, you worry about things that you don't know, you think might happen, but in actuality, they have not come to pass yet. So he was doing that. But God is never going to send us to a place or to an assignment that he will not equip us to handle and to complete. And in verses 1 and 2, the Lord is already beginning to show, hey, I've given you everything that you need. Okay, you don't even have to worry about that. So let's pick up with verses 3 through 9. So I'll do just like the last time, read those verses, and then we're going to talk about them. So verse 3 is still in the ESV. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses ran from it. But the Lord said to Moses, put out your hand and catch it by the tail. So he puts out his hand and caught it. And it became a staff in his hand again, that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you. Again the Lord said to him, put your hand inside your cloak. And he put his hand inside his cloak. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous, like snow. Then God said, put your hand back inside your cloak. So he put his hand back inside his cloak, and when he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you, God said, or listen to the first sign, they may believe the latter sign. If they will not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground, and the water that you shall take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. Okay, so I just read verses 3 through 9. And in this, the Lord does 3 signs to show Moses that, hey, I am with you. And to prove to people that I am with you, these are 3 signs that I'm going to empower you to do. So the first sign he enables Moses to do is to turn his serpent from, turn the staff into a serpent. So I was reading this in the Amplified version, and in one of the brackets near serpent, it says that the serpent is the royal symbol on the crown of Pharaoh. So essentially, what this is saying is that Moses is now being given power to take hold of his enemy, and that it will become like nothing to him. And initially, we see in verse 3 that Moses is running away from the snake, because obviously, like, if you see a snake on the floor, you're going to run away from that. But the Lord was showing to Moses that, hey, you don't have to run or fear from your enemies, because I am Lord over them too, and I give you power to tread on them. We know in Luke 10 and 19, Luke 10:19, it says, behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. So I think that verse is really a callback to this moment right here, and a callback to the garden, because very often the enemy is portrayed as a serpent or a snake, something that slithers on the floor. And the Lord is showing to Moses, and he shows to us, that we have power to tread on the enemy. And that's not because we're so good or we have so much great abilities in ourselves. It's because we are mindful of the fact that God is with us. And when God is with us, nothing our enemy puts against us or puts in our face, none of that matters. And we can tread on him. Then the second sign that he performs is that he turns Moses' hand into a leprous hand by putting it inside of his coat. So he's telling him, put your hand in your cloak. And so he does. He pulls it out. It's full of disease now. And then he says, put it back. Puts it back in, pulls it out, and it's now made whole. So this is another transformative sign, basically showing that we can be made whole when we come into contact with God, that he can heal us of whatever we're going through, that spending time with him transforms us. And then the last sign he says is to take water from the Nile, pour it out onto the ground, and it will turn into blood. So this is more of a warning sign. The first two signs were saying this is what happens if you choose to follow God and you choose to be transformed by what he says and by the renewing of your mind and by what the word is saying. This is what will happen for you. And the third sign is a warning and says, if you do not heed what I've said, um, there will be judgment to come. So he gives Moses the authority to do all of these signs. And um, and now we have to see, so we'll see in verses 10 to 13 how he responds to that, because it's, you think, oh, he's has all these signs, all these things that the Lord has told him that he can do, or he's giving him authority to do, surely he's going to feel better about it. And it's easy to like say that from this place of, where we know the whole story of where Moses goes, he frees the Israelites through the Lord's help, they go into the promised land. We know that whole story. So it's really easy to for us to gloss over this and just say, no. But we also have to remember that Moses at this point in time has been away from Egypt for about 40 years and is probably really scared to go back to that place because he did not leave there on good terms. When he left, he murdered somebody and ran away in hiding. So it would be really hard to. I know that if I did something like that and I had to leave a place and someone told me to go back to it, I would be questioning and doubting that people would believe me or trust what I was saying too. Because, I mean, it's not like that's something that's easily forgettable. So I just want to say that because it is really easy to take ourselves like out of scripture and like paint ourselves as the perfect person that's saying, "Oh, if I was in this situation, I would do this." And truly we have to we have to really humble ourselves and really think about in that situation realistically having the experiences that that person was having, what would your true response really be? So we're going to read in verse 10 through 13 now to figure out what Moses said. But Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. But he said, O my Lord, please send somebody else. So we see that Moses' response is still, no, I do not want to do this. Like, I please send someone else. And there's always going to be an excuse that we have for whatever. So we see that Moses' excuse was he is slow speech and of tongue. So I read a commentary recently from David Guzik, and it really gave me new perspective on this. Because I've heard many times about this, Moses said no because he couldn't do it. Like he's like, I can't speak, I'm slow of tongue. But he pointed out that Moses spent the first 40 years of his life in Egypt, in the palace, getting the best teaching and the best tutors and one-on-one help. So this excuse of him saying I'm not eloquent um is most likely cap, because I don't really think that that would be true, because you spend all that time in the palace getting taught. It's very unlikely that you don't know how to speak to the people that are there. And it could be true that he's not used to speaking to the Hebrew people, but I mean, I just feel like he grew up talking to them as well and should know their language as well. So it just goes to show that we can make a lot of excuses, some of them plausible, some of them maybe not so plausible, but we have to just make a decision to look at who God is, and not what we can do. Because Moses, despite seeing that all God did just in this interaction of him performing those three signs, he's saying, I can't do it. Please send someone else. And when we focus on ourselves too much, everything that we face seems like it's too difficult and too hard for us. But living in a place of gratitude and thanksgiving really helps us to zoom out on that. and see, oh, you know what? It's a miracle that I'm even here, that I'm even able to do this, or that I've even murdered this person and somehow gotten away with murder for 40 years. You know, because at this point Moses is 80 years old, so he's 40 years out of Egypt, and to me that's a miracle. And so he's not thinking about that. He's just thinking about what he's feeling and what makes sense to him. But God is using this moment to remind Moses of who he is and the power that he holds. And God will always give us reassurance through his word, but ultimately it's our decision to believe what he's saying or not. So we have to learn to have confidence and not in our ability, but in what God does. And that's why we have to remember, in order to do that, we have to remember that God is with us. Um, in this moment, Moses is really scared and nervous because he's thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make a way? How am I going to push through this? And we really can't be in that place. We cannot stay in that place. Because if we do that, we'll always operate out of anxiety and fear. Because the truth is, the things God calls us to do, we cannot do in our own strength. We have to do it with his help. So we have to remember that he is with us, and anything that he is calling us to do, he's going to help us through it. And he's going to give us the people and the resources and everything that we need for it. One of my favorite verses to highlight this is 2 Corinthians 12 and 9, and it's a well-known verse. And it says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And that's the first part of it. Um, so that's really a great reminder to us, because oftentimes, I mean, as humans, we are weak. And the only reason that we're able to push through this and push to get what we need and what we need to do is because God is empowering us, and his strength is made perfect in our weakness. We have to really focus on that and not focus so much on our weakness. So we're going to finish out this in verses 14 through 17 and see what is God's response to what Moses Exodus 4 Exodus 4 verse 14. Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you both what to do. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. And take in your hand this staff with which you shall do the signs." So the Lord is basically saying, okay, fine, I'll give you what you want. You don't want to do this thing that I know that you can do, but you don't want to do it, so I'll give you Aaron. And, Moses is like, okay, great. I'll take Aaron because I don't want to do what you're telling me to do. Because he's finally being honest with God. When we saw in verse 13, he's just saying, you know what, just like send somebody else. I just don't want to do it. I'm not willing to do that. I'm afraid to face the people, and I can't do it. So no. And, you know, I relate to Moses a lot because I am somebody who is more introverted. And a lot of the times, the Lord will call me to go speak to this person in the grocery store, speak to that person at church. And I can make up excuses too and say, Lord, I've got to do this. I've got to get to the grocery store, or I've got to get home, whatever it is. And I can make a lot of excuses, but really it always comes down to, are you willing to do what God says, or are you not? And um that's just the truth. Are you willing to do it, or are you not? So I relate a lot to Moses, but it's really showing to me I have to make the decision to walk in boldness or not. And something that was recently told to me was that, often I pray for boldness because I want to be empowered to do more of what God is telling me to do. And someone told me boldness will come after the obedience. And sometimes I wait around, like Moses is probably waiting around, to feel like doing what God is saying in hopes that the boldness will come. But really, the boldness will come after you are obedient. Then more of it will come, and then you'll be able to walk more fully into what God is telling you to do. So in this moment, Moses did not choose to do that, did not choose to walk in boldness, and said he needed somebody else. So the Lord sends Aaron, and Aaron was not as much of a gift to Moses as Moses might have thought. We'll see later on in a couple of chapters down that while Moses is on the top of Mount Sinai, Aaron is leading the people into rebellion and into making a golden calf and disrespecting Moses' authority. And all of these things are things that could have been prevented had had Moses been the leader that he should have been in the first place. Because we just really never know what we're missing out on or what we are causing when we choose to be disobedient. There is a chain reaction to that, and it's more than likely not going to be something that is desirable or that is going to have good effects. So we have to, when we are choosing to be disobedient, we have to really think about that and think about what is going to be the effect of this. So, in conclusion, God is always going to give us what we need to accomplish what He's called us to do. And it's really our decision to do that or to not. So, what is a practical way that we can start walking in this boldness, walking in the confidence of the Lord? The first thing we can do is pray. If we are in constant communication with God, that's always going to reassure us that He is with us. You know, you can't be talking to somebody that you don't believe is with you. I don't talk if no one is in the house with me, I don't talk to no one that's not there. You know, if I want to talk to my sister, I've got to call her up on the phone. I can't just speak to a void. I have to believe that she's there, believe that she's listening. The same thing with God. He is all around us. He's always with us. But the way that we can be reminded of that is if we are in constant prayer with Him. And so that is a great way to be reminded that we're not on our own in this. Another thing you can do, like I said earlier, practice gratitude. Be thankful for all the things that you have. Tell that to the Lord. The small things are happening. You got a spot at Walmart right in the front. Say thank you to the Lord. You got up and you are feeling good that day. Say thank you. You got up and you're not feeling good, but you have money to go to the doctor. Say thank you for that. So there's just so many things that we can be grateful for right in this moment instead of going directly into doubt. And another thing is really just shift your perspective of what's from you out to other people. A great way to do that is to volunteer at a soup kitchen or whatever that you're interested in, whatever kind of cause that you like. It's a great way to get focus off of you, get involved with a friend or a family member to fix an issue in their life and stop thinking so heavily about what's going on in yours. And another way is to learn about experiences of people from other regions and what they're going through. You know, a lot of our issues, a lot of the doubts that we have come from us being so selfish and centered upon ourselves. So shifting your perspective outwards to people and God, that's a great way to take that off of you. And lastly, it's just great to learn the names of God and speak them. Speak His character over your life and be reminded about who He is and who this God is that has sent you to do whatever He has sent you to do. So I really hope you guys got something from this. I feel like every time I read about Moses, I get something different. Like, I think it's because, as I said earlier, that there's a lot of qualities about Moses that I see in myself. So it can be kind of like a mirror because the Bible is supposed to be a mirror to show you yourself and what you look like according to the standard of God's word. So I really enjoy reading through Moses' story, and I hope you guys got something from this, and I hope that you can bring something to someone else. If you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend. Like this video. Subscribe if you want to be able to tune in when I post new videos, or leave a comment for me if you have other ideas, or you can contact me in the information below. I have that in the description. If you have a request that you need me to be praying for, or just any general questions or anything at all, just contact me. And I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.